Steve Scanlon. I am the CEO of a company called ReWire. We are an executive coaching company. For the 13 years prior to that, I was an executive coach. None of us have a 360 on ourselves. The best athletes in the world understand that, and if they want to get better, they invite someone from the outside to come in and look. And so a couple decades ago, it really began to be a thing like, oh, if athletes would do that, why don't we do that? Why don't we do that in our work, in our lives? Because we can't see around ourselves. And so coaching was born. Prior to becoming a coach in basically 1999, I was the national production manager for a mortgage company. So I've been in and around this industry for many, many years, primarily because of the relationships I have around the country. The coaching that we do in our company is a lot to real estate and mortgage just because of our relationships. And so in 2008, I started to grow an interest of what actually created human transformation. How do we actually change? How do we grow? And I started to become very, very interested in that, and I will let you know, and maybe some of you have heard me say this before, but if you ever got really interested in how do you grow, how do you change, I promise you this, you would find yourself in the field of emotional intelligence. Here's the reason. You'll take more action in your life based on how you feel rather than how you reason. And so my whole desire is to understand how the human brain works and actually how we change. Today, how do we keep a growth mindset in a season of scarcity? How can we grow in this season? The scarcity mindset that's going on right now in mortgage banking is off the charts. People are walking around all over the place, freaked out, stressed. It's just off the charts. And so if you can walk out and adopt and adapt a growth mindset, I'm telling you, it's nothing shy of a unique selling proposition. You want to be unique in this industry? Let's create a growth mindset right now. Let's be honest. How's it going? Who'd be willing to share? How are you doing?
It's tough, but I'm having fun doing new things and seeing that kind of bear fruit.
If you are going to get up and give a talk on growth mindset, because you just said some pretty powerful things, like you're having fun and it's coming in, like what would be part of your topics?
Just being realistic and working extra hard and getting my mind in the right place for this market has been
okay, great. How do you do it?
I'm naturally an optimist anyways, and so maybe just sheer force of will.
God, that would be a great slide. I want everyone to just be positive.
Right.
Dang it, now. Here's a little bit of neuroscience. The brain, the human mind, spends 4 times more energy detecting threats and looking for negativity than it does positivity. We are threat detecting machines, which, by the way, from a survivalistic perspective makes sense, right? You would think, oh, let's just go be happy and positive. Happy and positive feels good. It's not life-threatening. Whereas threats are life-threatening, and so human beings spend 4 times as much energy detecting threats than they do seeking reward. The human brain has roughly 84 distinguishable neurochemicals. 4 of these chemicals they call your happy chemicals, and you've heard of some of these. Give me a happy chemical. Dopamine, that's right. Dopamine is a naturally occurring, God-given chemical, right? And so when we call it dope, it's because we refuse as a culture to find it naturally, and so it's too easy now to find it sort of synthetically, right? So dopamine. What else? Serotonin brings a sense of peace and calm. Ask any smoker. I don't know if you know, but nicotine, which is a drug. Did you all know nicotine's a drug? Okay, nicotine fits perfectly into the serotonin receptors of the brain, and so it brings a sense of peace and calm. Endorphins. If you go work out and if you get that runner's high, they call it, or whatever, endorphins bring a sense of elation and euphoria. And then the last one, which I think is the most important one for what you all do for a living, is oxytocin. Oxytocin gets released in our body when we feel a sense of belonging. When you trust somebody. By the way, the highest amount of oxytocin you'll ever have in your life is at birth. The mother and the baby spike this huge amount of oxytocin, both the baby and the mom. So it's all happened to us, which is why I'm convinced that, like I tell people, I have 4 kids and a grandson, by the way, but I have 4 kids. I love them, but not like my wife. You want an instant spike of serotonin? and dopamine, and particularly oxytocin, practice gratitude. Gratitude is a practice. When you get triggered, you get a condition from an underwriter. Somebody says something. You get a nasty email from somebody, whatever it is. You get triggered. If you can remember to just practice gratitude, because gratitude will actually change you neurochemically. It is impossible to be negative and hold gratitude at the same time. And if the brain is truly spending 4 times the amount of energy, then we can combat that partly with gratitude. 30 seconds of gratitude can actually transform the way that you think and the way that you live. Of the 84 different neurotransmitters and hormones in your brain, there's only one main negative one. Okay. Cortisol, AKA the stress hormone. How many of you have more stress and anxiety and worry and fear in your life today than you wish you had? Raise your hand. Okay, keep it up, please. Look around. Unless we can learn specifically how to release that, then all this other work, I could give you all the positive things. I could give you gold with regard to how do you grow your business and what are some of the things we need to do. It could be gold. It won't matter if you're stressed because your brain simply doesn't function. That is by design. Because cortisol, as a neurotransmitter, has a half-life in our brain. Cortisol is designed to turn on and turn off. If a bear came into the room, you better damn well have some cortisol. And adrenaline, which actually secretes and gets the cortisol actually around our body. That's what it's for. But here's how our culture does it. We sit around, and you might even be sitting there right now going, oh my God, you know how many emails I've got? You know how many files I got going on? You know this. You know what the kids said to me? You know this. What about this? What if this doesn't happen? What if it goes bad? What if rates go up? And we just do this and do this and do this, and now we live in this stressed out culture. Go Google excessive cortisol and weight gain. Excessive cortisol and type 2 diabetes. Excessive cortisol and cardiovascular disease. There's research to suggest in the last 10 years in the United States alone, there's been a 300% increase in early onset dementia and Alzheimer's. 300%. You can explain most diseases congenitally and genetically, not 300%. There has to be environmental factors, and there's all these neuroscientists going, we know why. You want to know why? Because we are a cortisol-ridden culture. I'm watching it daily impact people's lives and their businesses. So what it might mean to go, how do we learn to release that? And if we could, what might it mean to your business, to your life, to the people around you? If you walked out of here and had some pragmatic, tactical ways to manage and navigate through stress and anxiety, would that be a good use of our time? You can learn, and we can practice things where you can reduce stress and anxiety in your life. It is possible. You can measure this. Cortisol is measurable. You can actually go to Amazon right now and get a saliva test. They use saliva and measure your cortisol, because people sometimes go, I don't think I'm that stressed. Really measure it, we'll find out. You see, I think we've acclimated to it for so long and so much we don't even know it. That's why we have all these nefarious health effects. But about 5 years ago, I started to measure my own cortisol, because I don't feel like coming out and coaching people or teaching any people on something that I'm not willing to practice. And I will tell you that my cortisol is down. See, I had to practice it before I came out and shared it with you. And if I can do it, I promise you, it's doable. And if we do that, you want to change your life for the good, and I'm here to go, hey, how do we have a better mortgage thing? You could walk out of here and it might not just be the mortgage thing, it might just be your life. You want to be a better version of you? You can't be the best version of you riddled with cortisol. And as we learn to practice these things and we reduce cortisol, you're going to be unique in this business. Everybody's freaking out. I was just the keynote speaker at the Texas Mortgage Bankers Association. That's all I heard. The industry, the rates, the margins, this. Freaked out. Like, I get it. And yet, we have a choice. But stress doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like a response. Do you believe that you were given in your life the ability to choose your emotions? Can you choose how you feel? If you're worried or stressed or whatever, any of those emotions that increase cortisol is having this huge negative effect on us. But what I just said is, it's a choice. And that sometimes doesn't feel good for us, because if that's true, then it feels accusatory. I'm telling you, we are choosing it. But I always think of that as a positive thing, because if we're choosing it, guess what? We can unchoose it. I just heard this from one of my clients the other day. He brings out the worst in me. When I hear comments like that, I'm thinking, so you respond negatively to somebody else, and we go, they brought it out in me. It stresses me out. So one thing I'm going to invite you to do is start paying attention to your language. So check this out. Nothing stresses you out that you don't allow for. I choose stress. What an interesting choice. Most stress and anxiety and worry is a future projection of a negative outcome. The future projection is fictional. I have a coach, his name is Lyndon Crow. Guy's forgotten more about emotional intelligence than I'll ever know. Brilliant man. And I had this person I was coaching, and I could not get through to this individual. And I asked Lyndon if he would help her. She came back to me and she's like, he said something to me that rocked my life. I couldn't wait to hear this golden nugget. Ready for the golden nugget? He finally said, as long as you're making up in your life, make up good And this rocked her. Because she thought about it. Here I am quoting scripture and saying, is that okay? Like, think about that. If your future projection of a negative event is fictional, I'm not the person that's going to go, let's just make up good stuff and it'll be all okay. I'm not that person that thinks that, because I don't believe that. But they're both fictional accounts. But let me ask you, which of the fictional accounts do you think would serve your life? The projection of a positive outcome or a projection of a negative outcome? So you have the ability to go, what if it got good? And so one of the ways we can begin to release cortisol is by projecting forward positively. You can choose differently, right? And when you use language like, he stresses me out, she stresses me out, this stresses me out. This business, it's stressful. The business is not stressful. I understand that many people have a stress response as a result of what the business brings, but that's a choice. And if you get around a group of people that begin to choose differently, you can just change an entire culture. But there are companies out there right now where their whole culture is just stress, 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 stress. How many times we stress and stress and stress and then close loans? We stress and stress. We get to the end of the month. Oh, the end of the month is always so stressful. And then you close loans. So do you get it? You're actually rewarded for stress, and then we think it's part of the equation. I was working with this one CEO, and he was like, wait a minute. So you just want me to do fewer loans? And I had to stop and go, think about what you're saying. You think your loan production is tied to stress. I'm here to suggest, you want to close more loans? Be less stressed. Because your brain will work better. Interesting thing about cortisol, it blocks our prefrontal cortex. Stress makes you dumber. It makes us less creative because that part of your brain doesn't work. You could leave here and not change anything. And you know what's going to happen to you if you don't change anything? Ready? Nothing. You'll be okay. I'd love to say, if you don't do this, you're going to die. No, you're not. You're going to be okay. But if you come to things like this and you know, actually, I want to have a positive impact in my life. I'd love to feel less stress. Okay? Well, we have to look at exactly how to do that. But you have to face the idea of doing something different is going to be like, I'm risking the good. Raise your hand if you think you're blessed in your life. Okay, so you check this out. It's the same amount of you that raised your hand was stressed. Stressed, 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 blessed. Stress, 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 blessed. It becomes part of the equation. So if I sit here and go, hey, what if we felt less stressed? You know, many of you like, doesn't that risk the blessing? We live in this culture that's stressed and blessed, and so there isn't much incentive to change that. And I am trying to do everything I can, and you can hear it in me from the top of my lungs to go, less stress. The reduction of cortisol so that we can be creative and we can function and we can have better relationships. You want better relationships in your life, whether whoever it's with, less stress, less anxiety, the reduction of cortisol. And we can do it. And these two stick figures represent a process called metacognition. Meta is a Greek prefix that basically is a self-referential. I always think of the word about. So if you're in IT, metadata is the data about the data. Metacognition is just a fancy word for thinking. So metacognition is learning to think about how you're thinking. You see both these stick figures? They're both you. This is your ability to see you. These are both you. Can you see you? I call these the stick figures that literally changed my life. If you get this concept, it will change your life. Because you're not aware of the world, you're aware of you. So yeah, metacognition is a thing. You could literally leave here today and practice metacognition. Have you ever heard the saying, I'm in my own head? Something is being in your own head generally considered a positive thing or a negative thing? Negative, right? Metacognition is the positive side of being in your own head. Metacognition attempts to go, actually, why do I feel that? We're gonna do a quick example. We're gonna practice it live. Y'all know what a pet peeve is? It's a small little thing that bugs you. Make a list of your own pet peeves. The toilet paper backwards. People that... Oh, you can have that one down. That one can be yours. Go ahead, start with that one. Ready, go. Make a list of pet peeves that you have. Now, turn to somebody and share your pet peeves with somebody. All right. It's so funny when you do this exercise, the energy in the room goes crazy. You're not sharing your pet peeves, you're selling it, right? And when you share, did you have someone else go, yeah, me too, like, let's have communal hatred over this thing. That's the dumbest, like toilet paper backwards, are we nuts? I want you to look at your list and just put a highlight, circle, star, the one on your list that just happens to you the most frequently. Pet peeves are a wonderful place to practice metacognition. Why does that bug you so? When we begin to practice metacognition, it's a skill. We're learning a skill. I choose pet peeves on purpose because they're little things that bug you. If we would learn to practice metacognition on little things, we begin to practice the skill for learning to do it on other things. I want you to ask, why does that bug you? Because people are idiots. Or, like you already have some answer about why that bugs you, but the external answer never quite explains why we choose this. And once you begin to practice metacognition, you'll find multiple areas in your life to practice this. You need to make a tough call. People are doing that these days. We need to reach out to more referral partners. Do you know how many people in this industry have call reluctance? A lot of us. But guess what? In 2020, 2021, it didn't matter. Things were raining, like all you had to do is go outside and open up your mouth and you could take loans and it didn't matter. Now we got to go call people again. What's the number one reason for not making as many calls? What do you think I hear? Like, here's why I didn't make calls. Yes, I don't have the time, which by the way is an utter lie. It's not about time at all. It's absolutely about the fear of rejection. But if we don't practice metacognition, like you might practice metacognition on the calls that you need to make and go, wow, how interesting. I actually fear rejection. That's fascinating. And you come to that realization. Coming to that realization is really good because then you can deal with the right problem. I'm watching all these people fill out another time block and put green time and red time, and they figured out how to color an Excel spreadsheet, right? That's it, I'm gonna put it from 9 to 11, and they're doing something else and not addressing the actual problem. So in practicing metacognition, if you're sitting around going, yeah, I don't have the time, we know that's not really the reason. The reason is how it makes us feel. So if we practice metacognition and go, whoa, what's with that? Why don't I do that? If it's not time, why don't I do that? And you might realize, whoa, I actually like my comfort. We don't want to change. We'd have to give up comfort. How many of you made a New Year's resolution this year? A grand total of none. Let's all pretend together for 1 second that resolutions worked. We'll just pretend. We're waving a magic wand. Resolutions work. And by the way, I've done some bit of study on this. The word resolution is fascinating. You are re-solving a problem. Resolution. You are resolving. If you're resolving it, you know what the implication is? It means you've tried to solve it before. Hence the resolving. Okay? If you've tried to do it before and you're still resolving it, you know what the implication of that is? You have failed at that thing. I'm going to give you a little brain science. All the brain needs is one good juicy failure for it to go like this. I don't ever want to feel that again. So folks, what's the easiest possible way to not feel failure? Don't try. The truth is, we don't want to confront or face the failure. But what if we could? Because I want to suggest to you that whatever you need to confront in your life, let's confront it again. And by the way, again, it's one of my favorite sayings by Dale Carnegie. He said, success in business and in life consists not only in the pursuit of excellence, but also in the humble willingness to start over. Here's a different mental process. Ready? You get to. What if you get to? The difference, by the way, mentally between got to and get to could change your life. You want to walk around saying, I gotta do this, that's punishment. Or else what? What if I get to? I get to. It's a whole different mental process. How do we help others practice metacognition?
Maybe call them out on their negativity. Sometimes people are so ingrained in that they don't even realize that they're being negative and they're bringing other people down.
If somebody's being negative and you call them out on their negativity, how's that worked for you?
I mean,
Have
sure.
you ever done that with somebody? Hey, you're being negative. Has that person ever said, you know what, thank you? I think I can hear every one of us go, you're being negative. We do that. And you know why we do that? Because it's expedient. You can't sit someone down and go, I need to spend 2 hours with you. Like, just stop being negative. That's why I don't tell people, don't be stressed. Has that ever worked for anybody? Have you ever talked to a stressed person who's stressed? Said, don't be stressed. Have you ever heard them say, you know what? I was going to continue being stressed until you said that. And now I'm going to journey down this other road because you told me not to be stressed. It's never happened. What other ways can we help people?
Relate to them a little bit more instead of just like, I've got to go on to the next file, I don't have time.
Absolutely. So again, I'll give you this is a little bit of a coaching technique. Helping someone reframe is one way, reframing it. You want to know how you do that often? Is what they call it coactive listening. Hey, I was just listening to what you're stressed about. I just want to make sure I understand that. Here's what I think I heard you say. You're stressed because of this and that happened and this and school. Did I hear that right? Is that what you're stressed out about? And by the way, don't go, is that what you're stressed about? As if to say, you dummy, that won't work. Did I hear that right? I'm telling you, I don't know what percentage, in my life, 70% of the time when you just reflect something back to somebody, they hear it outside themselves. And you can go, wow. So you don't even have to have suggestions. Sometimes we just listen really, really well and reflect back. And then we might say, okay, before we get there about the whole thing, what are you grateful for? I will tell you the number one way that I have found to do it is to literally walk out of here and practice it myself. If we walk out of this room and we remain stressed with cortisol high, but we're on a mission to help other people with their cortisol, we have a problem. If we can begin to navigate cortisol, understand it better, relate to it better, practice metacognition, you watch, you will change people in your life.
We all can relate to stress, we understand it, what have you, but the minute you were talking about, okay, hey, you're gonna maybe make more calls, call reluctance, all that, I was kind of looking around the room, I saw fidgeting and moving a little bit, so now it's coming into things I should be doing.
We gotta go back and make these calls. I gotta go make these calls. Or else I'm gonna run out of money. Bad stuff is gonna happen. It's all a future projection of a negative event set up by the language that we use. You get to. And until we can change that language, we are going to increase cortisol on ourselves. In the increase of cortisol shuts off the part of our brain that we need to do the very action. I had a leader recently who was asking for, I forget, some daily thing to be turned in.
It'd be weekly, not daily, go ahead.
I was trying to guide. I was trying. If it feels like this thing where when you hand it to him, he's going to be like, wow, you either suck or you don't. All it does is increase cortisol. If we increase cortisol, you're actually decreasing the person's ability to actually go do the work. What if the mindset was, hey, let's do an activity tracker and talk about what worked. What are you doing well? There's no punishment if you don't do it. Anyone have an 8-year-old? Someone around an 7 or 8-year-old? Boy or girl? Boy. Girls are nicer. If you tell a 7 or an 8-year-old boy, go home and go, you have to go clean your room. Well, see this? What kind of responses do you get? They don't say no. No got them in trouble. So they're like, and they ham and haw and whatever. Okay, because people don't like to be forced to do anything. Did you know that if I tell you, you have to do this, there's a whole part of your brain going, no, I don't. It could be the best thing for you. And you will resist it as a human being because we do not work as well on compulsion as we do on freedom. Let us start freeing people, not forcing people. Free people, don't force people. Now, sounds good, right? How often do we do it to ourselves? All the time. And it's just as detrimental to do it to yourself as it is to other people. Sitting there and saying, I gotta exercise. I gotta do this. Just evaluate it yourself. How's that worked in your life? You'll notice those things don't last because our brain doesn't work on that. It works on freedom. I'd want you to write down WIW. WIW stands for what if we? What if we? You see, what the industry needs right now is more what if we. What if we did this? You see, what if we is a level of creativity. What we need right now is creativity. We need fewer people sitting around telling me the facts about what's actually happening and then projecting the facts that they're going to happen into the future, creating all this cortisol. It's killing people. I'm not a reality denier. Rates are higher, margins are lower, and inventory is down. Great. Now what?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Yes. Now what? That was good. It's very difficult to be creative and stressed at the same time. So as we reduce cortisol, we increase creativity. And I'm watching, I've got 3 or 4 clients, just to give you some positive stories. I've got some people going, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we created a cash buyer program, right? Or did something like that. There's some really cool, interesting things coming out right now to help people to take away contingencies by, whatever. And I'm not saying they all work, and I know it's programmatic, but I love at least the creativity. How are you being creative? What if I did this? What if I made calls like that? What if I did this? What if I did that? The what if we factor increases when we decrease cortisol. And so we're more creative, we're more thoughtful, we can be more positive. And so you want a good mindset in this season, let's go about learning to practice metacognition and learning how we can reduce cortisol, because when we do, we can have some amazing effects on our life. You could get back to things like, I am going to put a little plan together. I am going to execute that plan. I am going to make those calls. I am going to get creative. I'm going to be positive. I'm telling you, you want to make a huge difference in your world, just go out and be positive. No one is right now. You want to be unique? Call your referral partner. Go, how's it going? And when they ask you what's going on, yeah, things are kind of difficult, but you know what? I've got some pretty good things going on, and I believe that this could happen and that could happen. Make up good shit. It's just as fictional. I'm not sitting here going, I'm not that guy that's like, if you do that, it'll all be good. I don't think thoughts like that. I'm just saying, since they're both fictional, ask yourself which one serves you. By the way, if the reduction of cortisol were easy, and I was going to tell you these simple, easy steps, 5 steps to reducing cortisol, if it were like that, we wouldn't live in the culture we live in. Because it would be super easy. It would be readily available. Okay, so number one way, hands down, number one, I'll give you the number one first, sleep. There's this whole system in your brain called the glymphatic system. You could write that down too, go Google it, it's fascinating. Here's what happens when you get slow wave restorative sleep. They call it theta wave sleep, because it's actually your brain makes these waves. Imagine there's this big tube at the back of your brain that opens up this channel and it releases dead cells, neurotoxins, and cortisol. But we're not a rested culture. We're not sleeping. And for even people that get sleep, there's actually great studies that show the amount of theta wave sleep that this country is getting is dropping. And so our glymphatic system isn't opening. We're not releasing the neurotoxins or the cortisol. We go to sleep stressed. We wake up stressed. How can we get better sleep? And this is where people get pissed off. I'm going to give you ways to get better sleep. As even the number one way to reduce cortisol is...
Could you say that again?
No. Can't. So 3 ways to get better sleep. Number 1, reduce caffeine. Now I say reduce it, I will tell you this, 12 to 14 ounces of caffeine in the morning does not preclude the glymphatic system from opening, because our body metabolizes it just fine. Here's the problem, it's all day long. Have you been to a high school lately? Monster, Rockstar, Red Bull, Kickstart. I just want to help people sleep, because the lack of sleep keeps our cortisol in our bodies. So that was the number 1. Number 2, reduce alcohol. So you know what alcohol is? It is condensed sugar. You take a potato or grapes or barley and hops and you ferment it, and the fermentation process is the extraction of sugar. Alcohol acts as a depressant. We all know, have enough of it. Blah. 90 minutes into sleep, it turns into a stimulant. It's like giving a kid a bunch of pixie sticks and saying, go to sleep. So 90 minutes into sleep, after the depressant wears off, it stimulates our brain, precludes the glymphatic system from opening. And then we don't release the neurotoxins. My father died 5 years ago of Alzheimer's. Spent the last 34 years of his life in AA. Alcoholics Anonymous, so much for the anonymity part, but I guess he's gone. The occurrence rate of dementia and Alzheimer's and alcoholics is high, and it's not because people think alcohol is bad for you. It's because we're not sleeping, and the lack of sleep keeps the cortisol in our body. Here's one thing cortisol does. It frickin' eats your hippocampus, which is where we encode memory. So we didn't do an autopsy on my dad, but had we done it, you would have seen these amyloid plaques on his hippocampus, which is what we know happens. And there's all these neuroscientists going, yeah, you want to keep that much cortisol in your brain for that long in your life? It will kill you, and you won't like the end of your life. Something's going to kill all of us, I get it. The question is, how do you want to live your last days? Because you don't want to do it like that. Now, exercise is the third one. There's actually not a lot of science that shows we reduce cortisol with exercise. The correlation to exercise and a reduction of cortisol is exercise makes you sleep better. And we know that. Every time we go out, just go for a walk. You don't need to run marathons. Go for a walk, get up. And when you do it, lo and behold, you're going, wow, I'm sleeping better. And you're reducing cortisol. And if we can do these things, we can practice this level of being in this work, being creative, going out, achieving some things. You don't need more knowledge about what you should do. We need to examine how we're thinking about it, practice lowering cortisol, and if we do, we can do amazing things in this season. This can be a great season. But guess what? I'm not going to sit here and go, you have to, or else. Because I would violate the very thing that we're talking about. You get to. You're in an awesome industry. Go be positive. Help people. It's good. And if we do that, we can make a huge difference.